Listen, you smell something?
Human emotions are materializing in the form of a viscous psychoreactive plasm with explosive supernormal potential.
What a discovery, a psychoreactive substance.
Do you know what this equipment is used for?
Boggle or Super Mario Brothers?
We'll have fun!
Yeah!
They're still doing it. Really quite good work there.
My friend, don't be a jerk.
We've got no choice. Call the Ghostbusters.
Super Jackpot!
Welcome to Extraplasm Podcast. It's the only podcast on the internet that's trying to determine if it can take mood slime in its carry-on for a cross-country flight, provided that it's stored in TSA-approved containers. I'm your host, Jim Maritato, aka Think Maniac on the internet, and I'm thrilled to be bringing you what amounts to the final episode of Extraplasm right before our big field trip across the country to celebrate Ghostbusters Frozen Empire's premiere and the kickoff of the new movie that everyone will be able to see in just a few weeks. This week we're talking to Craig Goldberg of Yes Have Some Podcasts and their recurring YouTube series Ghostbusters Radio Live to hear a bit more about an awesome series of behind-the-scenes videos that they're going to be sharing with the world beginning this Friday. And if you're asking, what scenes were they behind, Jim? Well, just a little movie called Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Craig and his co-hosts Abigail, Gardner, and Jacob Walsh had a very unique opportunity to visit the set during filming in London last June, and now they'll be releasing video content in partnership with Sony and Ghost Corps beginning this Friday, March 8th. So make sure you're following them on social media accounts like Instagram and X at YHS Podcast. And on YouTube, you can like and subscribe to their channel by heading to youtube.com/@YHSpodcast. Craig and I had a fun conversation about this forthcoming video series, as well as some fun goofing around about Ghostbusters canon and fandom. And I'm excited to bring you that conversation this week. And I'll be real, like, I've seen a preview of two of these videos that are going to be coming out, and you should be excited about these videos because they're going to show you some very cool behind the scenes stuff after you see Frozen Empire, unless you decide to dig into something beforehand. But I digress. We will get into that conversation with Craig in a few minutes, and you can hear a little bit more about what he has in store. But before we do, I want to remind you of something, and then we'll get into some Ghostbusters headlines. My big reminder for the week is that if you're listening to the podcast on the day it's released, this is your last opportunity to enter the Ripple Junction t-shirt giveaway by signing up for their newsletter. As you may recall, Ripple Junction designer David Miyakawa was on the show last week, and together we told you about the opportunity to win either a set of Ripple Junction's Ghostbusters sweaters or their awesome extreme metal Ghostbusters designs on t-shirts. The deadline to enter that contest and to save 10% on their new Frozen Empire collection, if you want to as well, is today, March 6th. So if you haven't done it already, head over to the Ripple Junction website, go to ripplejunction.com/Frozen Empire, all one word, to get your entry in. Winners will be drawn on March 7th. And I want to say thank you once again to David for coming on the show and to Ripple Junction for making this awesome promotion available to fans. Don't miss out on this. You may, in fact, just win something really cool. Okay. So now, before we make my big homecoming trip to the Big Apple, let's talk about some Ghostbusters headlines.
Still making headlines all across the country, the Ghostbusters are at it again.
Today, the entire eastern seaboard is alive with talk of incidents of paranormal activity.
Call-in topic today, ghosts and ghost busting.
Extraplasm, read all about it. Ghostbusters headlines coming at ya.
In Ghostbusters Frozen Empire news, virtually everything has happened except the release of the movie itself, or at least that's how it feels. This is probably going to be the most dense set of headlines to process through that I think we've had since the show started because of how many things happened as soon as tickets went on sale in the last week. So if I missed something here or if I covered in brief, you may want to follow up and take a look at it because otherwise I could probably give you a headline segment that would take up most of an episode, but we won't do that because talking to Craig is a lot of fun and he's got a lot to share with us. So rather than tell him to leave and cover all the headlines instead, we'll get through the headlines in brief and then we'll get to that conversation. But on Thursday, the 29th of February, ticket sales opened at theaters around the country, including at AMC, Regal, Alamo Drafthouse, websites like Fandango. So if you've been waiting with bated breath for tickets to go on sale so that you could get yours and make sure that you were going to be there on opening night, you can now do that. Go ahead and grab your tickets from your local theater or online, however you'd like to. And to go along with the release of tickets, we got one final trailer for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in the last week. That trailer is one that I'm not going to necessarily tell you about in terms of its content. Instead, I'm going to suggest that if you want to see the final trailer, you should go and check it out. Feel free to do so. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's probably the most spoilery of the trailers that are out there that have been released in the US market. It probably shows the most of things. And this is kind of like the Afterlife trailers. If you think about it, when that came out, that was the trailer for Afterlife that came out right before the movie came out, was the one that revealed that Egon was going to be involved. So this is a situation where if you want to know a little more about the plot than you might want to, in terms of being spoiler free, then go ahead and check out the trailer. I'm going to sort of stand off of it because I want to leave something for myself in the theater to be excited about. And my understanding is there's also an international trailer that's quite a bit spoilery. But again, it's something I've decided to kind of tune out of. I kind of made a decision for myself that I've looked at enough trailers and enough promotional materials, and I wanted to save something for myself in the theater that I don't know about. And so if you're in the same boat, you might leave this trailer alone and then watch it after the movie comes out to go, wow, that was a trailer that I could have seen. But know that there is a final trailer out there. And one of the key things in it that I'm excited about is the potentiality that all of the ghosts that were ever in the containment unit might get out. It's something that is mentioned in the trailer, and it's the one thing I'm going to tell you from it. And so if that happens, that's going to be amazing. And also anarchy and dogs and cats living together are all going to happen. There's going to be totally mass hysteria, and I'm going to be totally for it because there are so many cool ghosts in the Ghostbusters universe that we haven't seen in a while. So it would be cool to see them make a comeback. So of course, if you want to see that trailer, you can hop over to Ghostbusters News and take a look at it because rest assured, Jason has that for you. But I'm going to put a pin in describing it here so that way, if you're trying to stay at least a modicum of spoiler free to get in the theater, you won't have had too much more spoiled for you. But one more cool thing that happened with respect to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire marketing in the last week is that the folks down at Hook and Ladder 8, the Firehouse in New York City that you may better know as the exterior of the Ghostbusters Firehouse in the movies, they had their full-size replica Ghostbusters sign finally erected on a pole above the archway that leads in the station in the screen-accurate position. And I'm totally stoked about this because not only do they have, this great sign up that kind of came about as a result of the Buffalo Ghostbusters deciding a couple of years ago that they wanted to buy them a Hollywood Collectibles sign to have them, be able to put out when they wanted to. But the other thing that's kind of awesome here is that they've suggested there's more to come. The official Ghostbusters HQ account on Instagram tweeted that they were going to let everyone know about this happening. They posted a photo of it as the sign was going up, and they then said, before 100 tourists scoop us, more to come, which of course implies that there may be something else happening down at the Firehouse over the next week. And those of us who are going to New York may get to find out what that is when we go down to visit. And so rest assured, if there is something else happening at the Firehouse in the immediate future, I will do my best to bring you news of that on Extraplasm and its social media. But in the meantime, it's really cool to see the Ghostbusters Firehouse as you know it from the movie in real life. I mean, no question about this. The sign is finally up. The place looks like the place you know from the movie, which is kind of amazing. And so it's kind of crazy to think about that fan effort, and how it has led from a small Hollywood collectible sign to this major piece of film marketing. And potentially the Firehouse being involved in helping to, ring in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. We'll see what more to come means over the next week or so. Beyond the release of the trailer, the release of the tickets, the signs being hung up at firehouses, what would movie marketing be without a little bit of merch? And in this case, you're not getting a little, you're getting a lot. I'm not going to get into every single thing that's being put out as a promotional item at theaters at this point because the number is incredibly high. Regal has announced a whopping 29 items that are currently available in their merch store for this movie, and AMC has 19. They had 20, but we'll talk about what happened to the 20th in a moment. So there are about 50 different items just between those two theater chains, which is kind of wild and crazy. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen that many souvenir-styled concessions for a movie in my life ever. There's a ton that is available. A couple highlights that you should know about. Regal has a Firehouse shaped tin that we talked about a couple weeks ago and that is full of popcorn. It appears to be sold out at this time, but it doesn't necessarily seem this is going to be an exclusive to them. And to be real, like most of the things that I'm going to talk about probably are not very exclusive given that they share art with the Ghostbusters store. They share art with the Ghostbusters key art that was in the style guides that we talked about with David Miyakawa last week from Ripple Junction. So There's a lot of opportunities there in terms of new theme shirts, hats, etc. But these may not necessarily be designs that are unique or exclusive to Regal, or if they are, it may be like, shirt colors are, but the logo is not, the design is not, etc. So this is something to consider. There's a lot out there, but how much of it is actually exclusive is kind of a different question. And that being said, not all is happy in the land of exclusive merchandise and popcorn buckets. AMC likewise has a lot of different new options they put out. Some of the things they have out for apparel are less Ghostbusters Frozen Empire themed and are more Ghostbusters themed, pulling from older key art and things from previous style guides. But the thing that people are sort of up in arms at about in the moment is that they revealed a Slimer popcorn bucket and said that this was something that would be available for folks to purchase for $19.95. The bucket appeared to be more photorealistic than the one that Cinemark had created and represented the sculpt of Slimer from the movie more accurately. It also apparently had brown paint accents on it, etc. Except that that's not at all what's arrived to anybody who's ordered it, their homes or their offices or their mailboxes, wherever. They're not receiving the same product that's on the website, and instead they're receiving something that looks like it was produced by Temu or Wish. It doesn't even come as one assembled piece of bucket, and instead comes as a front and a back that needs to be clipped together. And so you can take a look at this kind of messed up atrocity if you go over to Ghostbusters News, because Jason's got a pretty good article on this, illustrating what was advertised and what is now, being shipped to people. It's become clear that AMC is aware of the problem, as they have now pulled the product from their website and are no longer selling it. The question I have is whether or not this just became the most rare of the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire merchandise collectibles, given that you can't buy one anymore, or if this means that AMC is going to try to pivot and figure out how to, re-advertise this in a way that's more accurate, such that people are not upset. And I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, it's kind of important to consider, maybe also that AMC doesn't really run their own website for this stuff. They license that out to a company called Only in Theaters LLC, and they don't take any returns. So if they're advertising something that, doesn't match what they're actually selling, they're not taking returns, it probably opens up some pretty significant liability. But I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know, but it's kind of the thing that rings in my brain. But nevertheless, if you got one of these, you may want to hold on to it, because apparently they're not going to make any more of them for the moment, or at least aren't selling them. And you may have just accidentally fallen yourself into, the most disappointing popcorn bucket of the bunch, but the one that may also be the hardest to get. And you know how that works in Ghostbusters collecting. It means it's now worth tons of money and full of value. But anyway, and as we've discussed in the past few episodes, there are, of course, these popcorn buckets coming from Regal and AMC in the shape of ghost traps. We now know that Regal's ghost trap popcorn bucket will have a light on it that will blink, apparently, as if you've caught some popcorn. The doors will open and close. And so that's pretty cool. That is going to be available at the week of release of the movie online. So you'll be able to find that over at the store.regmovies.com website that Regal runs. And AMC's bucket will likewise also go on sale the week the movie comes out. It appears it's going to go on sale that weekend. And so you'll be able to pick up both of those popcorn buckets. I believe that AMC's is going to run you about $39.99, whereas Regal has announced that they will sell you the bucket with no popcorn in it for $25 at the theater. How much it's going to be online remains to be seen. And of course, you'll end up paying shipping for that. So it may be better to get these in the theater if you can, purely because it's going to be cheaper for you. But it may be harder to pick up there because, quantity may be more limited. So keep those things in mind, and hopefully, things will be a little better in terms of the content we're going to get, or rather the products we're going to get for popcorn buckets on traps than the Slimer bucket that AMC is putting out. One more thing I want to tell you about Regal is that they will have a couple things that are going to be theater-only concessions. Namely, they will have a 230-ounce no-ghost popcorn bucket, which is an insane amount of popcorn for any one human being to ever consume. I don't even know what that looks like. I feel like it's going to be like a 55-gallon drum that has Slimer on the side of it or something. They also are going to be offering some 44-ounce drink cups that have blueprints of Ghostbusters tech on them, as well as the Frozen Empire logo. And there'll be 4 cup toppers for those cups. To be clear, these may be repurposed from Afterlife, especially because the RTV is one of the items that you can get, and these look pretty familiar to me. But to be clear, I didn't really collect the cup toppers from Cinemark and other places last time around, so they could be new or different. The other thing they'll have inside of stores that people will be able to pick up is a t-shirt of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire that will come with a large popcorn. And finally, they will be offering some form of slimed popcorn that apparently is going to be covered in some sort of green coating. I believe this is a green caramel coating that you'll be able to get on your popcorn in certain Regal locations. So these are things that are going to be specifically available at their concession stand. You can't obviously have somebody mail you green popcorn. So if you want that, you're going out to a Regal cinema. And one final thing to know about Regal that's kind of cool is that they have decided to put the movie into their My Way Matinee program beginning March 30th. And that's a sensory-friendly film series that allows guests to experience the movie with the lights turned up and the volume turned down, which is pretty cool given the number of people in our community who are neurodivergent and the number of kids who tend to identify with Ghostbusters who are sensory sensitive. It's pretty amazing to find out that that's going to be happening. That way the folks who want to experience the movie who might not ideally be able to experience it well in a loud and dark setting can do so and appreciate it while it's out in theaters on a big screen before they need to watch it on home video. So I think it's pretty cool. Props to Regal for doing that and figuring out how to create an opportunity for folks who might not otherwise feel comfortable watching a movie given their sensory, sensitivity. One more piece of merchandise that's specific to theater chains is Alamo Drafthouse. If you have one nearby you, will have a 16-ounce collectible glass that's going to be available for $15. The only way to get it is to add the glass to your ticket purchase at checkout on their website. So you'll get an idea of whether or not these actually exist, because if it isn't available at your theater, you won't be able to add it to your cart. But the last time I checked at the Los Angeles location, I could apparently buy one ticket and buy 10 glasses. So there's a thing. The glass has some cool custom artwork on it from Alamo Drafthouse artist Chris Billheimer that depicts Slimer, as well as some frozen spikes coming out of the ground and the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire logo. So there's a pretty cool glass. If you're going to head out to an Alamo Drafthouse anyway, then certainly put this in your cart when you buy your ticket. But act quickly, because once supplies of these are gone, they are gone. There will not be a restock of them. And they are a while supplies last kind of thing. Now, while we've been talking a lot about theater exclusive merchandise in the last few minutes, there are, of course, a few other merchandise tie-ins to talk about with respect to Frozen Empire that are not exclusive to a theater. And one of those is with the Icy Company. This is the company that produces frozen drinks that are kind of like Slurpees, except not. That you can find at different Target locations, movie theaters, some gas stations and convenience stores, etc. And essentially, Icy has revealed finally, after some teasing and some coy, disclosures on social media about what they were doing, that there are 4 Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, flavors. One of them is called Boo Raspberry. One is called Red 1/Cherry 1, using sort of the format of the Ecto 1 as the title of that particular drink. One is called Slimer's Back and is a green apple flavored drink. And apparently there is a completely new drink that they've never made before that's called Mischievous Mini Puffed, that Icy representatives have disclosed is a quote unquote new flavor profile for them entirely. And apparently is a carbonated marshmallow flavored frozen drink. I gotta be honest, I had no interest in trying Icy until somebody said I could have carbonated frozen marshmallow soda, and now I want it. So I was not going to hunt down an Icy, I gotta be honest. When I first saw this, I was like, okay, cool, whatever. That's not really my speed, but now I kind of want to know what that's about. They apparently may be also releasing some Ghostbusters Frozen Empire specific cups based on artwork on their social media. So if you're looking to find this, some retailers where you can find Icy include Target, Safeway and Albertsons locations, Flying J truck stops, Checkers and Rallies restaurants, a whole bunch of different places. So you can, anywhere you can find Icy, you may be able to find these particular flavors. I wish there was a website that would tell you exactly which ones have it, but there isn't. So in the meantime, you'll just have to run down to places where you can find an Icy and see if they've got what you want. If you find that marshmallow one though, let me know how it is, because I want to try that now. If frozen desserts are not your speed, though, then you might want to try out things that are incredibly hot and spicy. The Frito-Lay company has moved on from teasing their Cheetos product over the last few weeks, and we now know what product they are actually going to put out. Frito-Lay is announcing a special edition snack product called Ghostbusters Flaming Hot Smoky Ghost Pepper Puffs. Say that 10 times fast. The bag for this alone is a reason why some of us will run out to buy it, purely because Chester the Cheetah is on the bag in a Ghostbusters flight suit and wearing a proton pack, which is among the most ridiculous things I've ever seen on a chip bag, but also something I totally want. If you're a Cheese Doodle fan and a Ghostbusters fan, then this is probably something you're going to want to grab from your local grocery store, convenience store. It appears they're going to be sold in 8.5 ounce bags, so keep an eye out for that. If we get any inclination of where that's being sold, I will let you know on social media or, follow up with you next Extraplasm. But if you see it out there, if you run into them, please shoot me a message and let me know where you're finding them. And one additional tie-in that's food related that will be coming out in the UK is by a brand known as The Pizza Company. How unique. They will be putting out Ghostbusters themed boxes, including the Ecto-1 and Slimer eating pizza on their line of frozen pizzas. Normally, you would never hear me talk about a frozen pizza on Extraplasm because, come on, you all know at this point that I'm a pizza snob and I would never endorse such a thing. But lo and behold, there's now Slimer themed frozen pizza. And that may be a thing that I need to get at least the box of. I don't think I'm going to end up with the actual pizza unless some sort of amazing magic happens that allows somebody to ship me a frozen pizza so I can sample it from all the way across an ocean and then most of this continent that I'm on. But, we'll see. Maybe I'll end up with a box and then maybe I'll do something weird like frame it because it's pizza with Slimer on it. And that has to be amazing. And if you, after eating that pizza, you feel you need to, have some better nutritional options for yourself, or at least help yourself with your next workout, then you might turn to EHP Labs. You may recall that EHP Labs is the company that has been marketing their Oxy Greens products and Oxy Shred products under a Ghostbusters license since late last year. They're now announcing a series of flavors that are directly inspired by Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, including Oxy Shred drinks called the Death Chill, which is kind of funny. I never thought that somebody would try to sell you a drink called Death Chill, but apparently they will. Ecto Freeze is another, and the new Frosty Big Apple is another flavor that they've got out coming for Frozen Empire. They're also releasing a series of collaborative merchandise that has the EHP Labs logo, as well as Ghostbusters branded t-shirts, hats, and shaker bottles. These are kind of interesting because they look like mashups of EHP branding alongside the key art that we talked about last episode with David, and you've heard me talk about a few moments ago. So if you're interested in this stuff, if you're into the EHP Labs, sort of nutritional supplement stuff that they've got out, then those products are going to launch on March 18th through the EHP Labs website, as well as through Vitamin Shop stores across the US. And a final piece of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire themed sponsorship or marketing that we can talk about for a few moments isn't really product oriented at all, but rather is tie-in content with a YouTube creator that most of us are familiar with. Adam Savage over at the Tested channel on YouTube has launched a new video series in which he is showing folks how slime is made, at least in the first one. It's essentially a series of behind the scenes vignettes that he's showing how special effects work and going out to the set in order to give people the lay of the land on that. In this first video that he's got out, he meets with senior effects technician Douglas McCarthy, who you're also going to hear a little bit about potentially from somebody else in this episode. Adam had an opportunity to visit the set out in London to learn the recipe for slime, as well as to test a practical effect slime rig that's used to create the effect of Slimer flying through human being. You can take a look at this over on the Tested YouTube channel for sure. It's pretty cool and fun, but I will warn you that if you're trying to go into the movie spoiler free, then you should probably avoid this until after the movie comes out, because it's got some pretty direct behind the scenes footage that shows how some effects in the movie were achieved. You're probably not going to see your principal actors involved in that and things. So if you're just okay with seeing how something might happen in the movie based off of an effects rig they built, then you can go take a look at that. But if you don't want to see that, then don't watch that video until after the movie comes out. And don't forget, you're going to hear a little more about behind the scenes footage and potentially slime a little later on this episode when I talk with Craig. Okay, so if that wasn't enough news for you so far, and that was just the Frozen Empire news, Then in standard plain Jane Ghostbusters merch news, Premium Collectibles Studios has previewed their upcoming 1/4 scale Ghostbuster statue of Gozer and the Terror Dogs. You can find images of that product over on Ghostbusters News, where Jason Fitzsimmons has shared the images, or over on the Instagram account for Premium Collectibles Studios, which is Collect PCS. These are, as of yet, unpainted prototypes and renders. And if you don't recall what these, Premium Collectibles Studios items are, they are high-end statues that go alongside, the original existing Ghostbusters statues they've done already. PCS produced those over the last year, and they're pretty pricey, coming in at $675 to $725 each, but they're also incredibly detailed. And you might remember that PCS is the company that went back to the drawing board with their Ray Stantz figure to try and make sure they made fans happy with the likeness. So you have to give them some credit for something, that they really care about making sure that they're putting out a product that people want to spend that level of money for, and that represents the attention to detail that a product that costs that much should have. So the Terror Dogs that they've got coming out and the Gozer sculpt they have coming out from the 1984 movie are probably the most detailed sculpts I've ever seen of these characters, period. So if you want to check these out, they're pretty awesome. Head over to Collect PCS on social, or hop over to Ghostbusters News to take a look at Jason's coverage of them. They are, again, going to be pretty pricey, but if you're the kind of person who appreciates attention to detail in terms of your collectibles, this is something you may really want to put in your collection. An additional piece of merchandise tie-in news that's not Frozen Empire specific is that bootmaker Timberland has announced that they will be revealing a collaboration with 2 exclusive theme boot styles coming out this month. They will be made available for sale for the first time on March 21st, but they will also apparently be revealed on March 12th for the first time in detail. So far, they've only offered up a couple teaser images of these 2 products. One is a boot that has black and yellow laces and accents that are Ghostbusters themed, and the other appears to be a potentially glow-in-the-dark boot with a green sole and stamped images of Slimer on it. Apparently, Timberland is also going to offer up a contest to win a set of these boots. So if you want to check that out, to enter easily, head over to the GhostbustersNews.com article on this, and then take a look at the photos that Jason has for the boots so far, and scroll down about halfway down through the page to find the link to enter. Again, we'll see more photos of these and more of a reveal probably the day before the next episode of Extraplasm comes out. But, if you, in the meantime, you want to enter the contest and get involved before time runs out, you can go and do that. And one final piece of Ghostbusters merchandise news to talk about this week is a new 3D Ghostbusters Firehouse headquarters jigsaw puzzle that's been made available from Rebit 3D. This consists of 500 puzzle pieces that are 3D and that essentially build you a firehouse. The set is essentially designed to show off the Ghostbusters franchise over the last 40 years and has over 20 Easter eggs in it. It stands at 12 inches tall in height, 7.25 inches wide, and 9.25 inches deep. So it's pretty cool. It also comes along with some build-up Ecto-1 and Slimer figures to go along with it. So if you recall this company, they are the folks who make the existing 3D puzzle of the Ecto-1. So in this case, if you get the Firehouse, it will come with a reduced size version of that model that I guess would fit inside your Firehouse. Ideally, that's kind of what should happen with it in a 3D model. So you can pick this up from the Rebit3D.com website for $44.99. If you want to take a look at it easily, of course, you can go and find it on everybody's favorite website, Ghostbusters News. Moving out of merchandise for a moment, we have 2 Ghostbusters media releases to talk about that you should keep an eye on. One is that on March 19th, Amazon will release the Extreme Ghostbusters DVD collection that they had up for sale a while back, and then they shut off the faucet and essentially made it unavailable. And no one was really sure why, and it was speculated that there may have been problems with the way the listing was written and the accuracy of the details in it. For whatever reason, that particular pre-order has been reactivated and is now available on Amazon.com. So if you are an extreme Ghostbusters fan and you want to get the entire series on a collection of DVDs, you can now do that. The items will ship on March 19th, so you'll want to get things in pretty quickly if you want to be able to have that as it releases. And it's nice to know that this is actually going to come out and that people are going to have the opportunity to collect this series if they didn't have it already without bootlegging it. So I have to admit that my knowledge of Extreme Ghostbusters is fairly low, but knowing that there's a way to pick it up and watch the entire thing kind of interests me, and it may be something I decide to finally do. And the second media release here to be aware of is that the Dark Horse Comics book, Ghostbusters Back in Town, the miniseries that's going to be coming out between now and June, one issue a month, will actually be collected into a volume that'll be available in October for $19.95, which is pretty reasonable for you to get a graphic novel essentially with the entirety of all 4 stories under, or between 2 covers. I personally kind of dig that. I like to be able to put those books on my shelf as opposed to buying many comic books that get knocked around and damaged, etc. So if this is something that interests you, you can actually go and pre-order this now from Amazon, from Target, from Barnes & Noble, etc. It's not going to ship until later on this year in October when it comes out proper, but you'll be able to get it by the end of the month in October if you're pre-ordering it today. So keep in mind also, if you do that on Amazon, they have their pre-order price guarantee. So even if the price drops, they will give you the lowest price that it experiences. And you have 7 months-ish until it will actually release. So there may be some, sales, discounts, opportunities to get it cheaper that may get reflected in your final price. So if you want to take a look at that, you can, of course, head over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of the websites I just mentioned who are providing the opportunity to buy that volume as opposed to buying each of the individual books from them. Okay. So that was a lot of stuff. It was a whole lot of different merchandise, and I feel like I only scratched the surface given how many things are out there. So if there's something in the stories this week that compels you to go take a look at further than just listening to me, by all means do that, especially with respect to the trailers or anything. If you're the kind of person who wants to see even more trailers at this point, by all means, knock yourself out. But if you're not, and you're like me, get ready to go to the theater and try to not have the rest of it spoiled for you. So we've got headlines wrapped up. So why don't we go now to my conversation with Craig Goldberg as we sort of get to know what's going to be happening with their Firehouse Fridays series over on Yes Have Some Podcast. Joining me on Extraplasm Podcast and returning for another round of fun discussion about Ghostbusters, and in particular, the premiere coming up and all the great things that are coming along with it, as well as the trip that he finally gets to talk about of going to London and being on set. Craig Goldberg of the Yes Have Some Podcast is with us. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
I'm thrilled you're here. I'm always glad when you come back and talk with us. And I was trying to think the last time you were on might have been a commentary episode we did on something, maybe Ghostbusters 2. Is that right?
Yeah, for New Year's Eve, Ghostbusters. That was a lot of fun, actually, because I like Ghostbusters 2, and I'm glad I got to watch it.
Yeah.
It's never a bad time.
I like that movie, and it was a good group of people. I think there was somebody who actually recently in the last week actually commented on that YouTube video and just wrote, "This is the only way people should watch this movie now."
Oh, that's
pretty, wow, that's pretty bold. Thank you.
That's pretty high praise. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I had no idea that we had done such a great job. Perhaps we should be on a Blu-ray commentary sometime, or whatever other form of media exists in the next 10 years when they decide to re-release Ghostbusters 2.
Augmented reality commentaries.
Yes. It's going to be
got to be something.
It'll be on Apple Glasses, whatever it's called, where you just throw it on your face and then walk around and watch it wherever you are in a little pass-through window. But
Sony's always on the forefront of that technology. And it's always like, whoa, can you believe it? It's the new Ghostbusters game. It's VR, AR, AI, CG. It's everything. It's everything it could be. And then it's like,
yeah.
Who has it? I don't know. Has anybody played it? No. I saw the video. I saw a demo of it. It's always something like that.
It is true, too. It's like I had to meet up with somebody to try out that Ghostbusters VR game because I don't have a VR helmet. And then I'm like, I could buy one. I'm like, but why? For one Ghostbusters game?
Where do you go for that? You go to Best Buy and you're like, do you have any of those helmets here at the store?
I mean, we live in weird times.
We did a Ghostbusters VR thing in Orlando. It was, God, I don't know what it was.
Was it the Void?
I did the Void, which was great. The Ghostbusters Void was really cool.
Yeah, it was.
Whenever that was.
Was it FanFest that we did it in Santa Monica?
Yeah, 5 years ago. And the Star Wars Void was even better in Orlando. But no, it's the newer Ghostbusters. It's like you're on a platform and you're with friends. They have it at a place called Andretti's, which is like a big arcade bowling alley.
Oh, you're talking about the Hologate. That's
Yeah,
that's the thing that's at the Wonderverse as well. That's
okay.
It's
the same.
The difference is the one at Wonderverse has 2 floors to it, and the upstairs of it is like a racing game.
Okay.
And so it's like you fly a hovercraft Ecto 1, but the one you played is the like first person shootery thing, and the platform like moves along, because that's what Eric Christensen talked about when he came on the show.
Yes. Yeah. That one's good. That's a good one. I had fun, although my headphones were messed up and I didn't hear anything the whole time. And I didn't know. I was like, I think that's just part of it. And then I remember Abby and Jacob were like, man, the sound was so good. I was like, yeah, it was really good. I was like, I didn't have any sound the whole time. That's fine. All good. Next time.
You just had to make it up in your head. So, just
which is it's what I do anyway. Yeah.
Meddle some little yarpers.
Yeah. They felt that one in Pittsburgh. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Not canon. Let's move on from the video game. Come on, guys. Listen, I love the Ghostbusters video game, but people do talk about it. Like, I think, not to derail this completely, but people who love the Ghostbusters video game talk about it as if it just came out. It's the most important piece of media that has ever existed. But I get it. It is really good and fun. And I play that game more than any other Ghostbusters game that's ever come out.
Do you know what I really think it is? Is I think that people embraced that so hard as Ghostbusters 3. Like in their minds, it was. They had given up on the notion that the movie was ever coming.
Right.
So they were like, this is it. This is what we're getting. It's a continuation of the story. It has all of our actors in it. It's like if we watched a cartoon version of a successor to something, kind of like Kevin Smith doing a cartoon version of Clerks or something, and then bringing back the voice actors. And I think that like people owned it so much and loved it and wanted it to be like canon and part of what they had, that when they then got another Ghostbusters movie, they went, but how does it fit? And how do I keep it? And it's like, well, it doesn't have to.
It's the same thing with IDW, where it's like, there's people who have a very hardcore dedication to those comics. And obviously Eric Burnham, Dan Schoening did great work, but it all existed in this time before the time, essentially. Yeah. And this has happened with a lot of franchises. Like when Disney took over Star Wars, for better or for worse.
Yep.
They couldn't be directly tied to a bunch of canon and non-canon literature and games and everything else. So that you kind of have to have a fresh start, and then you can bring in pieces as you go. And also the thing I always tell everybody is none of this is real. So none of it actually matters. I think sometimes we forget about that too.
I like to think about this to some extent, like the way people don't talk about Back to the Future. Yeah. Right? Because like Back to the Future, if you actually look at the way the physics of it works, I think the way it works is like every time Marty goes back in time, like creates another timeline, but each of these Martys gets destroyed. And that's like kind of where the idea of Rick and Morty came from. Because originally the Rick and Morty cartoon was started as Doc and Marty when Dan Harmon was like conceptualizing it with what's his face. And so like if you were to actually look at all of the calamity and terribleness that happens to all the Martys that get in all these different abandoned timelines, it would be all this terrible crap, right? And at the same time, you have something like Star Trek that just when they were like, hey, let's make some more Star Trek movies, they put out this whole campaign about how it was not your father's Star Trek. And then they were like, we're spinning it off as a separate B plot line that exists parallel to this universe. And
right.
It just eventually it all has to come back together in some way. And it's just like, enjoy the ride, right? Like
enjoy the ride.
And so if you're out there and you think Ghostbusters, the video game, is canon, it's okay. Even if it isn't.
Okay.
Because to you,
it is okay. It's okay to be wrong. That's the lesson. It's okay to be wrong in life.
I won't even go that far and just say that, like, I think every reader who interacts with the text has their own relationship to it. And like, you can come out with your own understanding of it. Right. And so, right. Like if you look at it and you go, hey, this is how I process and understand this story to me and what I think makes sense in my own headcanon. And that's my particular understanding of the universe. That's cool. But then don't try to tell everybody else that's how it has to be.
Well, I recently, so you know how like, HBO, Max, whatever they call it.
Whatever
they're doing, they're gonna readapt the Harry Potter books into a series, and they're gonna basically remake Harry Potter, and each season's gonna correspond to one of the books. And I got really upset about it. I was like, this is stupid. And I was like really mad. And then I was like, somebody was like, hey, Craig, you don't even like or know much about Harry Potter. I was like, you're right. I don't know why I'm having such a visceral reaction to this. I don't care. But it seems stupid that you had all these movies. Now you're just going to redo them instead. I prefer a universe expansion. As opposed to starting over. And I think someday sociologists and psychologists will study the 2016 year in human history, and there'll be all sorts of stuff to unpack. But with the Ghostbusters stuff, I do believe that psychologically it really affected people, that they were just, after the promise of the possibility of expanding the Ghostbusters universe, that they were starting over. And then a lot of other stuff happened too. We don't have to talk about that. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. I don't know how we got on it, but it's an interesting.
I don't either,
topic.
but it's fine. I have heard some people suggest that they're worried about like how the new movie could affect, the canon. It's like you're extending and you're doing that extension of the narrative. And so what does that mean? Like, what might you find out about what went on in the 40 years or the time between like the first movie and now that happened with characters? And I had to say to somebody the other day, like, well, who cares? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, you can get upset about those things and be like, man, I thought this was going to be true about my characters. But like, I understand being invested in them. But by the same token, like I always remind folks that like your relationship with the first movie is your relationship with the first movie. Like nothing can change that. Like nothing can come along and be like Ghostbusters 7 comes along and says that Egon Spengler's parents were actually circus monkeys. And you're like, fuck, now I have to hate Ghostbusters 1.
Well, I mean, this is a big discussion point too. And I think there was a lot of this around the time of Afterlife. People were like, there's no way the Ray Stantz I know wouldn't have believed Egon. I was like, yeah, but the Ray Stantz you knew was from 1989. And like, I think a lot of people like, think about everybody you know right now. Think about if you knew them 10 years ago. I bet some of them are kind of the same and some of them are way different.
Because
people change, like, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's the real Ghostbusters thing. It's everybody went after Ghostbusters 2. They were the 4 best friends of all time and they had so many adventures and everything was good always forever. And it was great.
But they forget the beginning of Ghostbusters 2. They've all basically gone kind of separate ways. And when it comes to Peter, they're all kind of like, I don't know about that guy.
Yeah. Oh, and also, hey, Ray is pretty bitter at the beginning of Ghostbusters 2. Ungrateful little yuppie larva. After all we did he sounds like half the Ghostbusters community. After all we did for everybody. After everything I've done. Ray Stantz is bad for Ghostbusters. I'm just putting it out. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey,
he's the best. He's the best.
I have said this, that to some extent, he's the guy who comes out of the story as we go into the new movie. He's the guy who's like lost everything. He has no woman in his life, like no relationship. He has this bookstore that basically is failing and he's reliant upon a guy he hired to work in his business, basically unqualified to train him, who's now basically like bankrolling all of his stuff.
He'd be mad too.
Yeah, you have 3 mortgages. You probably lost that house your parents had because of all the lawsuits you had.
It's gone.
So he's the guy with the most that he's lost. He's the guy he's the heart of the Ghostbusters. But to me, I look at him as sort of like the broken heart of the Ghostbusters because he hasn't benefited as a result of being a Ghostbuster at this point.
Well,
maybe.
Being the heart of something usually means you're the most naive. And when you're lost in the sauce of whatever you're doing, you might not take time to think about repercussions or financial obligations. I mean, we can have these nerdy discussions about all of that stuff, but
yeah, and I'm not talking about the kind of heart that people who like to create independent media have, where they just throw caution in the wind and do things like suddenly decide they're going to board planes and spend lots of money, even though it might be financially irresponsible because they have so much passion for a thing. But
again, listen, we only get a Ghostbusters premiere every couple of years, okay? And you gotta do what you can do to try to be part of it. So
I have built a whole series of rationalizations for why it is okay to buy 4 days worth of hotel stay in the center of Midtown on the week of St. Patrick's Day parade.
Listen, here's some advice. And this is not to sound morbid, but there's only one rationalization that anybody ever needs for anything. Eventually you'll be dead and nothing actually matters. So just go have fun. People are like, oh, I've got dead. Who honestly, who cares? Hey, I know people with great credit who are living paycheck to paycheck because everything's expensive and they've got great jobs. And I know people who, everyone's the same, right? Everything's terrible. So Ghostbusters is all we have at this point in human history.
It's kind of true.
I'm just giving the worst advice of all time.
No, I've said this before. When FanFest was coming up, I looked at the dates. I was like, oh, I'm going to be 39 that year. I won't be 40. And I was like, I don't know. Should I spend the money to be a class 10 attendee? And then in my brain, I went, what are you, stupid? Like, they're not going to do this when you turn 40. They're not going to decide to have the 36th anniversary of Ghostbusters and have another fan fest. So of course you should go and just buy yourself your 40th anniversary experience, like your 40th birthday experience at 39. And I did. And then 3 weeks before my 40th birthday, we all locked ourselves in the house for the next 18 months and didn't go anywhere. And so I totally made the right call. In retrospect, I made the total right call on this.
Well, because you get all these memories, and it's hard when you're trying to live in the moment and appreciate everything. But then we all have times in life where and by the way, for context, let me be a good podcast guest. We're talking about the upcoming world premiere for Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I was getting there.
Frozen Empire. And for those fortunate enough to get a chance to go, it is expensive and it is a lot. And if you have the means to be able to pull it off, go for it. And if you don't, that's also okay. We all get to see the movie and it's all going to be great. But yeah, sometimes when you get a Facebook memory or something pops up on your phone and you see whoa, Ghostbusters Fan Fest. I know we've all talked about how it was a chaotic day and expensive and hot and all that stuff, but the memories are amazing. And
absolutely.
I remember the experience and getting to meet new people and see old friends and see the cast and crew. It's just awesome. It's good stuff.
Well, look, let's be real too, right? Ghostbusters fans love a good war story.
Oh yeah. Well, the underdogs.
they love a good war story. People in the Ghostbusters fandom who were like, I got to tell you about the time we went to this parade and we had to walk 15 miles and it was freezing cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, FanFest is just we all went to Normandy.
Yeah.
There was no water. People were falling down.
Some call it the last great American conflict. Yeah.
Every time I hear people talk about Ghostbusters Fan Fest negatively now, I picture Jerry Stiller from Seinfeld when he's in that episode where he's the cook and he's having the PTSD from poisoning his platoon.
Yeah, and he's the same age in the Vietnam War as he is now.
Right.
Hey, by the way, I actually made a little joke on our episode this week on the live stream when on Toy Anxiety. We were talking about the Willy Wonka event.
Yeah,
the now infamous Willy Wonka event in Scotland. And I said it was presented by Wizard World. That was my that was my fun joke.
That's a good dig. I like that.
But yeah, no.
But to be real about going to the premiere, I'm totally stoked. And obviously, one of the things that you're doing as a podcast is you're hosting a sort of pre-premiere party that you have that's sold out at this point. So don't clamor Craig. Don't email Craig to be like, can I come? No, you can't. Sorry.
It's the pre-premiere party. It's the new PPP loan.
Yeah.
But
it's
I have
the triple P.
We, in all seriousness, we did this last time, kind of on a whim before Afterlife. And it was a ton of fun. And it's something we don't really advertise it too much publicly beforehand because we really want it to be an event for the people who really support YHS in the most tangible ways, which means people part of our Patreon community and specifically part of the YHS Discord, which is Patreon exclusive. And it's not to be gatekeepery. It's not to keep people out, but it's just to say hey, you support us. We're doing this event. This is what it is. And it did sell out. It sold out almost immediately, which is really cool. And it's cool because it's really expensive to rent out space in New York City. And if people don't come, then there's no party. So we're super stoked. It's going to be the night before the premiere at an undisclosed location. Hint, hint. It's the Firehouse. Go to the Firehouse the night before the premiere. Have a great time. We'll all be there.
Don't do that. Don't go down there and like the guys at the official Ghostbusters headquarters. Everybody has decided on Instagram, right? The official Ghostbusters HQ guy is going to get all these messages like, "I'm outside. Can you let me in? I'm ready for the party."
It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's like a big animated gorilla at the door, looking through the people. No, man, it's going to be great, and I'm super stoked about it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Lots of friends and people we haven't seen or met in person even.
Do not go down to the Firehouse in Louis Tully cosplay, banging on the door. Somebody let me in.
Right. Actually do that. I want to take a video. I'd like to see that.
Will your party have Twister and Parcheesi?
No, I don't know if there'll be time for such party games or room. But we're hoping Ted and Annette will be there. We've been talking about Ted and Annette a lot recently because Abby just got a new car, my wife, my podcasting partner. And she, there was an hour of the first, she always names her car.
Yeah.
And she had named it Ted Fleming, but it didn't stick. I liked it. I was like, that's a really fun name for a car. So she's moved on from that. But yeah.
Did she settle on Bernadette? Is that what I saw? Is that
no,
right,
it's some Godzilla name, some creature that is the same. I don't know. She lost me once it went past Ghostbusters. I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand. But yeah, party's going to be awesome. And more than anything, like get to see a lot of cool people.
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to connect with folks. And, I think one of the coolest things about what you're doing is it allows folks who don't ever get to see each other, and in many cases who have never met each other, sort of get together in one place and, just meet in a place that is not necessarily like, hey, we're all at the premiere and we all have our own kind of like current internal mental meltdown about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Because I think like realistically we will, right? Like we all know this. We all going to go there and get there, and our inner children will come out and go, oh my God, what's happening? So,
I mean, I really got to take a step back sometimes because Ghostbusters is my favorite thing in the world. It just like people will be like, well, besides friends and family, no, it's my favorite thing. Number one, like, right. Like, it is obviously I love my friends and family, but and a lot of the people that are really important and close to me in my life are through Ghostbusters activities and community stuff. I love the franchise. I love the people in the franchise, the actors, and I love the people who make the movies and write the movies, and it's just been part of my life for a very long time. And I wanted a third Ghostbusters movie more than anybody in the world, or as much as anybody in the world. I've often told the story. I've probably told it on this podcast. 1996, first PC at the house, first computer, AOL, day one, got it all set up. I made it to the internet my first time because I had a friend who had AOL, but he never let me near it. Couldn't. And the first thing I ever searched on any kind of search engine or message board or news board or wherever it was, is there a Ghostbusters 3? Because this was a time where you just did like, there was never news about this kind of stuff. And that was around the time when I discovered Ghostbusters HQ. I was like, who is this Troy Benjamin? And how did he build such a beautiful website for himself? And I found Proton Charger, Chris Stewart. I found these people who 11 or 12 years old, I did not know later in life would be good friends of mine, which is just another weird thing to think about. And all this long-winded, boring nonsense to say.
No, it's not boring. You're making a lot of sense.
It was a huge part of my life always. And we all went through the ups and downs of getting to another Ghostbusters movie. And that's why we started YHS in 2016, because we were just so excited there was another Ghostbusters movie. Maybe it wasn't going to be the one we thought it was going to be or wanted or whatever, but the franchise was back, and that was really important for us to lend a voice to that discussion. And then obviously once Afterlife was announced and the entire build up to that, like the catharsis of just sitting there and watching a third Ghostbusters movie in that original universe. And it took me 3 or 4 viewings for it to really hit me of like, okay, this is a real movie. I didn't make this up, even though like I've often said like the story of Afterlife, it feels like fan fiction in a way where it's like nobody would ever make a movie like this, where it's like, well, it's like
right.
it's Egon's grandchildren and like he dies and then there's a farmhouse. It just sounds like, it sounds like John Yerkeba made it up. It's like, that's no dig at him. He's a very creative person.
Right.
And now that we're doing it again, I just have to take the step back and go appreciate it, because the next movie's not guaranteed. Right.
Right.
We all want more Ghostbusters. We want another movie. We want the animated series and the TV show and all of this stuff, but like, don't take it for granted, because there was a very long period of time where there wasn't Ghostbusters anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not in that time anymore. We're in a wealth of Ghostbusters right now.
And we also live in the weird time where like a studio can decide to produce like 85% of a project.
Delete it.
And then be like, nope, sorry. There was a tax write-off that we could execute as opposed to releasing this. And I don't mean Sony, but like, think about what's going on with the Batman universe, right? It's like, be grateful for everything, because nothing is actually guaranteed, even things that are planned. You know, it's just be grateful for whatever we get.
Warner Brothers is literally leaving money on the table with the Looney Tunes movie by not at least making an animated short where the Roadrunner and the Coyote accidentally destroy the movie. Like at least have some fun with it.
That would be hilarious. If they're like, yep. And then at the end of it, it's just like, it actually concludes where the writer, you remember the artist who is in that Daffy Duck cartoon, keeps drawing Daffy Duck over and over again with like weird head and all kinds of stuff and messing with him. So that guy shows up and it's like his sequel, but he's now the accountant. And so he just comes in and like writes a ledger of everything they get to write off because they destroyed the movie.
It is funny too, because it's like people are coming out and saying that Acme Roadrunner Coyote movie, whatever it was, is great apparently.
Yeah.
Not so much of that for Batgirl. Everyone was like, oh, that's such a bummer that they're getting rid of it. But also
we won't get to see Michael Keaton one more time, but yeah.
I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of how bad the Michael Keaton comeback was botched, but he's got another chance with Beetlejuice. So
he does. Good. I agree. Well, we should talk more about Ghostbuster stuff, but
let's do it.
You know, that's kind of why we're here. But you have had, as a member of a fandom that is very passionate and amongst one of the most passionate people in it, you've had a really unique opportunity that you've not talked about very much because you kind of couldn't for a while. That you went off to London, and you and Abby and Jacob were in London during the filming of portions of Frozen Empire. And yeah. So you've been kind of had this story of being on set that you've kind of been sitting on for the better part of 9 months.
Yeah. I mean, it was late May, early June of last year. We were presented with this really incredible opportunity, this really last minute incredible opportunity, which was like, hey, I will say this, it was serendipitous. There was luck involved. There was me being annoying involved. Like it's a combination of a lot. Like, here's information for people. If you ever want to like know how to, I don't know, make it as a Ghostbusters podcaster, be annoying and also at the same time be useful. Be 50% useful, 50% persistent, and see where that gets you. Listen, I feel luckier than anybody in the world. We got to do something that is literally like a dream. Like, we got to live our dreams. Like, not that many people go through life and say they had an experience that was literally, they couldn't have dreamed it up better. And that's what that was. We took advantage of the opportunity. We made it over to the UK where they were filming pretty late into the filming. I mean, I think, when did they start? Like mid-March. So it was near I'll tell you what it was. It was right around the time the writer's strike was happening.
Right.
And
it was also near Ghostbusters Day, if I'm not wrong. It was kind of around the same time.
Yeah,
we
got
there.
back in like Ghostbusters Day was a couple days later, and we kind of didn't know what the plan was going to be. We did not know how much access it was going to be. We were like, hey, if they let us walk around and tour the set for an hour, that will be worth it, right? But we worked out a thing, not a deal, but we asked like, hey, if we're going to be there.
No, wait, say it was a deal. I think it was funnier. You're like, listen,
deal.
I got a lot of really good Ghostbusters memorabilia. I'll trade you.
Yeah. You guys like popcorn buckets? We through Sony, and I think this is kind of something to point out. I don't know if people know or care, but like when people talk about Sony and people talk about Ghost Corps, like these are actually different entities. Like Ghost Corps is the production company that is making the movie. Obviously, they're involved with all aspects of marketing and promotion and everything else. But this was, obviously through Ghost Corps, but through Sony as well, where they were like, hey, do you guys want to do content? Where we're like, yeah, we'll do whatever we can do. Whatever you let us do, we'll do. And the first day we were on set for like maybe 6 or 7 hours. The second day was like 12 hours. And then the third day was like a bonus couple hours. So we had a lot of time on set, and we used their equipment that they gave us. We couldn't use our own phones or cameras or anything. And we got to do like this series of like behind the scenes videos. Basically, our whole thing was let's capture as much as we can, and we'll figure out what it looks like and what the delivery mechanism of it will be later.
And this was very different than like, I mean, I know you did some of the same things, I'm sure too, but like there were some influencers who came to the set who kind of had like a almost like a predetermined, prescribed template of things to do, right? Like if you looked at all these different folks who came who were TikTok folks, they came, they put on flight suits, they got to shoot slime blowers, they, played the VR game or something along those lines, but they kind of all did this very regimented, planned set of activations, if you will, right? And what you had was far more like, hey, shoot stuff, right? Like with different contexts, it seems.
Yeah, so they definitely did like an influencer week or day or something. And I think there's a lot of like European and British TikTokers and Instagram reelers. I can't talk tonight. I'm exhausted, but it's fine. We'll make it through. People who were local got to come to the set. They put on the flight suit. They get to test out some of the equipment, go on the tour for a couple hours, all that kind of stuff. Ours was definitely more like, hey, we're here. We'll do whatever we can do. And luckily enough, I think by that time, COVID restrictions had been fully lifted.
Right.
And things were more relaxed and really kind of going on set. So it was like, well, what do you guys want to do? And then we would say stuff and they're like, you're not doing that. it's like Breakfast with Bill Murray, recorded podcast. That's not happening. So we got to do a bunch of stuff. And I don't want to review. I want there to be some surprises as we roll it out, but let me just do my hype man thing. So the series is called Firehouse Fridays. And starting this upcoming Friday, March 8th, there will be a video that is released. That is the debut of the series. And then it is going to run for 6, 7, maybe 8 weeks up through release and beyond. And each week will be kind of a different thing that we did, for lack of a better explanation. I can talk about the first 2, maybe a little bit, and then we can kind of. Now, I will say this. These will live on the YHS YouTube channel or the Ghostbusters YouTube channels. We're still working out like the delivery mechanism, if it's shared content and all of that. I wish I had exact details, but I don't. But it is going to be available, and that's the most important part. And there will be no shortage of us posting about where to find it. So super excited about that. And then also we'll have I think like supplemental content, like, because we have a ton of like photos and just little quick videos and things like that we're going to also put on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
So lots of behind the scenes content that you're going to have coming out that will kind of dovetail with the lead up to the movie's release in a couple weeks. But Also, stuff that I imagine you're still going to have to be able to talk about afterwards, because I imagine if you were there and you each had a device, you never stopped shooting, because I wouldn't.
It's funny. We all have different like approaches. The three of us, like me, I'm like trying to be on camera talking as much as possible. Jacob is all about taking B-roll. Abby, I didn't see her for a couple hours at one point. I was like, I don't even know where she went, but she's here doing something. She's
climbing around inside a containment unit.
Right. And the thing is like some of the first video that we have coming up is all about slime. Like we got to make slime and we worked with this guy, Doug McCarthy, who's a special effects guy on set, who kind of showed us the ropes of how they, make the slime and how it's preserved and some of and I don't want to spoil it because there's some pretty cool stuff in the video. But the funny thing is like, I mean, we had 35, 40 minutes of footage that were like trying to like cut down into like a deliverable piece of like Sony approved marketing. So it's actually, it's kind of challenging because like, we're long-winded. I'm like, oh, let's put out like a 45-minute vlog. And it's like, no one's going to watch that. Let's put out like a 3-minute like highlight, because remember, the whole point of these is to promote the movie. Like,
it's funny you say that, like, because I think that for those of us who like, podcasters are long-form content people, right? Like that's kind of how we tend to roll is, we'll get to the point eventually. And the audience is there for the conversation, almost for the conversational journey to get where we're going.
Right.
And
right.
I think like what you're talking about is true, that you have to be so much more precise and, figure stuff out. And I even think about that when I talk with Tony from, Phantasm Toys. I'm like, you got to make your videos shorter. Like you got to keep them under 15 seconds. And he's like, why? I'm like, because then they fit in an Instagram story. Right. But if they are 30 seconds and the product is not revealed until like second 17, you're losing people don't see it. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But we're super, super excited to get this stuff out there. And more than anything, I think because we were on set, we got to see a lot of stuff that a lot of it's been kind of shown in various forms during the trailer, right? Or not the trailer, but there's been like, I don't know, 5 trailers and 47 posters.
1,700 posters and 400 popcorn buckets. That's the deal.
So we kind of, I will say this, I want to pat myself on the back, and I'm sure Abby and Jacob would do the same. Like we really bit our tongues and just put this stuff like out of our mind for 7-8 months because we couldn't talk about it. And it's a unique experience. Stayed 100% spoiler free for Afterlife. I watched the first 2 trailers. That was it. Did not watch a commercial spot, a TV spot. Didn't watch the 3rd trailer. Just different this time. So going into this movie is definitely a little bit of a different perspective, but I am so excited to see Frozen Empire because there has not been one thing shown that I have not absolutely just been like, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I have a very similar feeling. When we were doing the lead up to Afterlife, there was no Extraplasm. It didn't exist. At best, there was a account on Vank Maniac that was, on Instagram. That was what it was called. And I posted a lot of toy releases and links to stuff and how to find an RC trap or whatever.
Right.
And like, I tried to stay completely spoiler free throughout that entire process leading up to Afterlife. And on this one, I went, well, if you're going to create content, you kind of got to know what's happening to some extent. And it changed the perspective of how I look at the movie. But I think the thing that really hit me this past week was this sort of final trailer and this, like, all of the ghosts are going to escape. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I was already excited. I already kind of sort of excited to see where all these ingredients we've got to see so far are going to go in terms of making a good dish and a presentation if it's a meal. But then when you tell me like that the meal also is going to involve all these other great things that I've experienced already, I became so much more excited because I was just like, what? That opens up the door. Everybody who's ever complained so far of like, why are the mini puffs there? Because everything inside the containment unit might get out. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's really important for the franchise to take a giant step forward. And when you take a step forward, you got to take like some swings and some risks. And Afterlife has some big risks, but also in certain ways it played it pretty close to the vest as well. Like I think the big swings in Afterlife were inherently there from the beginning. Like we're going to take this out of New York and we are going to put this in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. Like, okay, that's a pretty, maybe not. I mean, obviously there's some rural and suburban aspects to real Ghostbusters, but for a Ghostbusters movie, it's usually in New York. So Afterlife took a big risk there. Obviously, it's a big risk banking the future of the franchise on a mainly new cast, right? Like sometimes when I rewatch Afterlife, like when the original guys show up at the end, I'm like, oh right, I forgot like that this is a thing. But story wise, like you've got Gozer, Ivo Shandor, and some familiar elements. So now, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of freedom with this movie, and Gil and Jason could create a new story that is very much in the spirit of Ghostbusters by all accounts. But, the packs are upgraded. There's new vehicles. There's new threats. And I think it's really exciting.
I mean, I'm going to ask you this because I know you can't talk about specifics, right? But like, you've been in a very unique position as people have been worried or speculating about, what will this movie be? What is happening? What is it? Where are they? I mean, you knew some extent, like you were privy to some of what's happening with the plot of this movie because you were on set as they were making it. You were around for, not just like a couple hours, but like you were around for full days of content, being shot or just watching things being produced in terms of props and stuff. Have you sort of been like sitting there the entire time just wanting to say to people like, it's going to be okay, you're going to love it? Like,
so here's a couple points on that. First of all, the thing I want to say is the amount of people it takes to make a movie, like we all know it's a lot, but like it isn't, like when they're in the big, studio sound stages, I mean, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Cast, crew, extras, directors, assistants, lighting guys, prop. I mean, it is just so catering. There's just so many people. So my first thought being there was like, man, I'm surprised everything doesn't leak always, because every single person here has a phone,
right.
But they all want to keep their jobs, and there's a lot of respect and for the integrity of the secrecy of the filmmaking process. So, we did get exposed to some stuff right away. And I think all three of us were like, man, this is going to be just awesome. Right. Because I think, Jim, I don't know, because the movie was made so far away in Europe, in London or outside of London. And because, they announced it kind of quick and they filmed it and then it was done. And I think when the first trailer came out, the thing I was seeing from people is the reaction. People go, well, this is way bigger than I was expecting. Like, I didn't think it would be like the scale would be like this, or the threat would be this big. And that was kind of what we felt like, man, this feels like they're really amping this up to a different level, and doing some really cool story stuff. And there's so much that, that we don't know about still. There's a lot, like trailers have revealed a lot, but like it's still like 3 minutes of footage in total. Right. So there's just a lot that hasn't been talked about and a lot that's unseen. And
we still haven't seen Oscar.
Oscar has not even been talked about, because he's in there. I was super excited about the new characters. I like every cast member. I love Patton Oswalt. I love Kumail Nanjiani. I love like, these are people I actually, and James A. Castor, like I wasn't that familiar with him, but now I'm like, I listen to his podcast all the time. He's so funny.
And like in my case, Kumail was, was one of the minds behind The Meltdown and the sort of the LA comedy scene that when I first moved to Los Angeles, the stand-up scene that was sort of emerging, that was very different from, typical stand-up. It was more like nerdy, creative comics coming in, talking about emotions and things that were really interesting and intellectual. And I was to sort of see him thrive and to sort of see Patton thrive. I feel very similarly. Like I want to see what they are in this movie, because they matter to me as creators, if that makes sense. And as personalities that I've identified with over many years. Right. So it's like, I mean, to be real, like William Atherton to me matters because he shows up in Ghostbusters and he shows up in Die Hard. but not because I was like a deeply appreciative of his work beforehand. I was 4 years old. But but in these cases, I've had like my whole set of relationships with those people. And I think you're right. It's cool that comics we like, because you and I are both mutual fans of like stand-up comedy and people who like to kind of talk about it.
Sure.
And, you know, I think that it's cool to see them stepping into these roles, and I'm excited about that too. Yeah.
I would say content wise, like I've always liked Patton Oswalt. I think he's just done really great work throughout his whole career. I find him to be extremely funny. Kumail, again, anytime he does an interview, I listen to it. Like he was just on Michael Rosenbaum, the guy?
Mm-hmm.
That's his name.
Yeah.
Great podcast. Great interview. Awesome interview.
Yeah. If you're not sure who that is out there, that's the guy who played like Lex Luthor in the Superman show.
Smallville. Yeah.
He's got a really great podcast. Really great
interview podcast. And then, so anytime Kumail does a long form audio interview, I've always listened to it. And his movie, The Big Sick, is an awesome movie. So, and then obviously like just, you know, McKenna Grace and Logan Kim and Finn Wolfhard, Celeste O'Connor, like they're all amazing, and they were all in Afterlife. And then Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd, and the list goes on. I'm just very, very, I'm excited to see how this all plays out, to see how the story all comes together. And obviously like Dan and Bill and Ernie are all over the movie. They're in all the trailers. They're getting the punchlines. Like the key poster they just put out, like the top of the poster is Paul Rudd, Bill Murray, and Finn Wolfhard. It's like, man, never saw this coming. This is crazy.
I have to say I'm excited about seeing more of them. And that's not in any way negative about Afterlife at all. You know, it's just, I think that seeing our characters back and seeing what they're about to do is interesting, you know, but I also think it's kind of interesting to think about how much the Spengler family is almost like the future of Ghostbusters in a weird way. You know, the narrative really does at this point kind of have them at the core of it. And I'm eager to see how that plays out in terms of what the next movie is after this one, but we'll get through this one first, then I'll make decisions.
I mean, to me, it's like, sure, like Ernie Hudson, I think, is older than Dan and Bill. I mean, he's pushing 80 years old.
Yeah.
And I think Dan's 71 or 72, Bill's 75, 76, whatever it is. And maybe on paper, you'd be like, oh, do you really want that? But it's like, it almost makes it even funnier because these are old. Now, the Ghostbusters were like, the whole thing is like, they're underdogs and they're like underappreciated in their time. And it's still like the original Ghostbusters very much has like the us versus them, you know, slackers versus the jocks kind of mentality of Animal House or any of those movies. And now they're old and they're still like, trying to do their thing. It's
like
hilarious.
Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
You watch those guys. It still works. Yeah. You can put them in a movie and even though they're in their 80s, they can still have a good dynamic against each other, you know, and play off each other as comic performers. So I'm really stoked to sort of see them all back in an ensemble that's bigger than just, hey, here's the one scene, you know, which really that's all you get in Afterlife is the one scene of the three of them together, you know. So
and another thing that's kind of interesting that I don't know if it's really been talked about, but like you always hear like 50s the new 40 and 60s whatever. But I know my parents, and they're both my parents are pushing 70 and they are way more youthful than my grandparents were. And I'm sure my grandparents' parents probably died at 52 or whatever because red meat. So it's like we're living in a time where it's, you know, they're old dudes, but they look great. They're
active
great.
dudes. They're old active dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Firehouse Fridays, you said starts on the 8th, right? That's this coming Friday. So 2 days from now, if you're listening on the day the podcast comes out. And if you're listening after that, then just go watch the one that's already out. Where do people find that? It's on the Yes Have Some YouTube channel. Is that where you're going to be putting that out, you think? Or you might be Ghostbusters?
Listen, I'm trying to figure it out. It'll be at one of those places, but like it'll be out there and available. We will be linking directly to it on all of our social platforms at YHS Podcast on, Instagram and X, Twitter, does anyone
whatever
really
it's
know?
called,
whatever that's called, which I thought at one point it was like going away, but now it's like, you
remember
still
that?
have to use it. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Remember when everybody was like, I'm done using this. I'm going to go use something called Mastodon or something. And
Right,
we're still
right.
there.
Yeah, we're all still there. But we'll be posting it on all of our official accounts, and then obviously individually, I'm sure we'll be linking to it. And it'll be out there, and like it'll be, you know, they're really ramping up marketing for the movie really hard right now. I mean, it feels like every day there's just more stuff coming out. So we'll get to be part of that mix. And you know, I think what's different about it is we still kind of, it's still us. It's still us as fans doing this crazy stuff, and we're not jaded about it. We're not like, we wear it on our faces in these videos.
Mm-hmm.
Like how excited we actually are. Like you can't really hide it. Like, and hopefully we can release like extended cuts, because there's just a lot of stuff of just us doing normal YHS, like goofing around and all that. So the first one will come out on the 8th, and then the next one will be on the 15th, and then every Friday. Not in perpetuity. It'll end at some point. But,
no, it's never going to end. You're going to make sure that you go back to, you're going to run until the next movie comes out.
Yeah.
And then
yeah. Oh,
that'll be when it goes on hiatus.
But yeah, it's fun. So right now there's at a minimum 6 videos. There might be as many as 8. It just depends on, you know, what is deemed appropriate for release. And we'll try to get as much of it out as possible, because we're sitting on a ton of
without spilling too much of what's in it. This first one, people should expect, well, what should they expect?
I think in the first one, you should expect slime. And in the second one, you should expect a bookstore.
I have had the benefit of having previewed these. You were nice enough to let me see them. And I want to say that I think you did a great job producing them.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
I love the fact that you are there as fans, and it's very clear that you are there as fans, but you are also there as what I was talking about last week, as good fan ambassadors who are kind of not just there and having your moment, but shooting good content that explains things and provides some, you know, context to things, which I like. So
yeah, I mean, we really had to run and gun some of it, because you have limited time and limited resources, because we're stupid Americans lost in the United Kingdom. By the way, I think Sony there's not one mention of London or the United Kingdom in any of these videos. They're like, we don't want people to think that we were in the UK filming this. I was like, oh, okay. Sure.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. But we had a ton of fun. Like, you could come off as kind of douchey if you say like, well, it's for people to live vicariously through our experience. But from a psychological aspect, that is majority of content creation, right?
Right.
There's a reason why people watch whoever, Mr. Beast or whoever does whatever. It's because you're trying to, you put yourself into the situation that you are observing. So for us, like I said, dream come true. And I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I would have sold my house to make it happen. Luckily, I didn't have to do something like that, because
everybody has 3 mortgages these days.
Everybody has 3 mortgages these days, is what I'm saying. But yeah, Firehouse Fridays starts March 8th. We say this all the time, but we couldn't do it without the support of our community. Yeah, we're just super excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see it. And from what I had the opportunity to see, I was really eager to see what else you got a chance to do, and sort of to be able to bring to folks. There's a lot of cool behind the scenes footage that you have shot, I'm sure of it, and we'll probably only get to see some of it because I'm sure you shot so much that you're going to package it in a good way. But I think that's what was smart, is you went and captured everything you could, and then you go, okay, what can we do with what we got? You know,
right. And I think the other thing that'll be fun is when we can actually start talking about the experiences on the podcast. Yeah. Because in many ways, it's the stuff we almost did or the stuff that we saw that wasn't captured on video that is sometimes more interesting. We did, when we got back, we kind of did like, let's just get everything out of our head. And we've been sitting on this like hour and a half of us talking about our trip. It's just sitting there waiting to be released at some point. Although I do have to go back and listen to it to make sure. I never edited it or listened to it, so it could be crazy. We could sound like
just some canned bunch of insanity where you are completely exhausted after days of shooting things and running and gunning and trying to get as much as you can in a completely different country. Yeah. On a completely different time zone. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but the stories will be fun. And like the whole getting there was a whole thing. And like there was passport issue. It's like every roadblock you could hit, we hit, and we were able to, we overcame some adversity to make it happen. Which always makes it that much sweeter when you do the thing.
Are you telling me you're a Ghostbusters fan with a war story?
I have a war story. In 1987, Columbia Pictures called me and said, "We need you forever."
I saw something in one of your videos, and in it, there's a real world item that appears to be inside of Raise a Cult that made me more excited than I think anything else that was in Raise a Cult. Can you guess what it is?
Tell me off air, because I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm trying to think. There's a lot of stuff in there, including 3 annoying podcasters, but there's, that's a good tease because I'm interested.
Yeah. I'm going to tell people they need to look for it because there's something in that video that you quickly pause on. And I went, oh my God, this thing is apparently canon in the Ghostbusters universe. And that is hilarious. And
I know when people see the video, I know what it is. I know what it is. And I know what it is.
We'll talk about it when we get off mics.
Talk about it.
But people are going to have to go look for it. And then they have to come back and like let us know in the comments, of this, either of this particular podcast released on the YouTubes or on your stuff and go, I figured it out and it was blank.
Maybe we could do like a scavenger hunt. Ooh. Another thing fandoms love at conventions, scavenger hunts.
But there's plenty of good stuff in there for sure. And you've got lots of good context you're adding, but there's one framed perfect shot where I went, that's in the universe.
Yeah. And it's interesting doing these videos because there's been certain things where I'm like, they're going to want this out and it hasn't even been acknowledged. And then there's been other things where I'm like, they're like, well, I'm like, why do you care? Like, who cares? So it's like, it's been an interesting experience, but our partners at Sony and Ghost Corps have all been really awesome. So yeah, we're super stoked.
I'm stoked to see it. I'm excited that you got the opportunity to do it. And, when it comes out, I think everybody needs to make sure they're following you over at YHS Podcast on Instagram, on X, and of course over on YouTube as well. Go like, subscribe, ring the bell, as they say, if you are a YouTube person. Ding. I kind of am. I release podcast episodes there and random reviews of toys from my kitchen counter. But
I hear you.
About as high level as my YouTube goes right now.
It's fun. We're having this has been a really cool time. It kind of feels like, we've been doing YHS. This is our 8th year, which sounds insane because I'm always like, we're just getting started. And I'm like, oh, we've been doing this a long time and it's hard to keep a podcast going. Our thing is like, we've never been, I don't want to say we haven't been afraid, but we've never not pivoted or changed when like the forces outside of our control were suggesting we do so, essentially. So, the first 5 years we did video podcasts, sometimes mainly was audio. And then during the pandemic, we started doing a lot more streaming and there's been times where like 2017, 2018, there was almost no Ghostbusters content to cover, you know? So it's like, we really had to kind of lean into other parts of our fandom and fandoms and stuff like that. But it's been very, very Ghostbusters centric for the last couple of years for obvious reasons. That's the thing that we love. And although I don't think your audio listeners would mind me sharing that, I'm in Abby's normal podcasting seat. Behind me is a Tommy Lee Jones bust from Batman Forever, which is, one of her top fandoms. So we love this stuff and I feel super fortunate, to get to cover it in this way. And, just super excited to see everybody out, in New York who are, fortunate enough to be there. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm glad we're all going to get to be, to see this movie together, you and I and everybody in, YHS and the community. And I want to say to you that you do a great job of cultivating a good community of people who collaborate together, who, work together. And I'm excited we get to see this movie together. That's one of the things I'm so excited and happy about, is that so many of the people who I've gotten to meet through the YHS Facebook group and the Discord over the years are the people that I'm going to get to see for the first time, or maybe for the second time. But I didn't know them quite as well before. They weren't people who I talked to every day. And that's in large part because of the community that's come out of your podcast. So I mean this, if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you should be following YHS podcast and you should be listening, because it's a place where people who are into Ghostbusters and who tend to be, I'm not going to, this is not me trying to be mean to anybody else, but people who are a little more critical and I think thoughtful come to your group, whereas opposed to, maybe other people go to a Facebook group where they're like, I'm mad. People are buying toys and they're in a Walmart shopping cart and it's unfair. And that's not what goes on in your group. Too.
We get no. I mean, we have. I love our community, family, whatever you want to call it. I actually don't want to call it a family, because then it's like, by the way, drink this Kool-Aid.
Come on, brother.
Yeah, we listen. There's a lot of different supporters from different walks of the fandom and different pieces. We have people who are, have been longtime YHS listeners who are very involved in Ghostbusters franchises and charity work and everything that comes with that. We've got people who come from the prop building community. We have people who are just hardcore fans who know nothing of said community, who have found us and found a place where they can kind of fit in. Because one thing we don't do is I hope we aren't gatekeepery about anything, because the most amazing thing is in those Facebook groups and in those places, that's where you get the most just nonsensical just discourse. Listen, we have strong personalities in and around the YHS community and Discord, but everybody, like you said, everybody comes to the table and brings a unique perspective that they're willing to share and listen. What I'm saying is, it's better than Facebook. It's better than Facebook groups. It just is.
It is. I mean, look, everybody I know who is in the YHS Facebook group will say that is the group that makes them come back to Facebook. I don't know how many people I know who are I could write this group off or write this whole platform off if it wasn't for the fact that I engage in this context with the community I have.
Part of it is I think one thing, I always say, we're fans first. I'm a fan of the franchise first. If YHS ended tomorrow, I would still be a diehard Ghostbusters fan who would be buying all the toys, I don't, although we do like to kind of consider this like a professional venture. We're constantly losing money because it's we're just always trying to fly places and be at events and because we're fans first, and we'll do anything to have those fan experiences and share them sometimes with either on the podcast or actually share them with people in our community. So, but yeah, the thing I'm most proud of is I got away from this point, but there's people who have found us who never would have known about a Ghostbusters premiere or known about or had the opportunity to do a cool event because they're just fans or toy collectors or whatever who it's kind of like how I think I am with Star Wars. I like Star Wars almost as much as I like Ghostbusters, and I collect all the toys and I'm huge into Star Wars, but I don't know anything about the Star Wars community. I don't know who the Star Wars podcasts are. I don't know who the Star Wars YouTube channels are. It's just a different perspective. So if somebody's a huge Ghostbusters fan and they find YHS and they like it, then we want them to stick around and feel welcome.
Fan ambassadors. I'm telling you, we have to start fan ambassadors. That's weird. Yeah. But for real, it's what you're talking about is cultivating a space for people to come in and feel welcome. And I'm not trying to put down any other group, but I said this for years. I love GB fans. I love AJ, right? AJ Quick, who runs GB fans, is awesome. But for years, I didn't talk in the GB fans forum. I was a lurker, for many, many years. Cause I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to say in here. These all people all know more than me. And if I say the wrong thing, I might get told I'm saying the wrong thing. So I'll just sit here and learn.
Say it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and contrast to that, it's like when we do have those kinds of moments inside your community, it's not like, hey, you're wrong, you're a jackass. It's just like, hey, actually, here's some info that might be helpful to you. And people kind of move on from it. And I wouldn't, to be real, like many people who've come on this podcast who I consider friends and who I've considered just great collaborators, whether it's Tony Taylor, whether it's, Brendan, Badoochi Studios, whether it's the folks over the containment unit, Matt and Tom, like those are friendships for me that were born out of your group, where I was in there and would interact with them in comments and things and like, oh, these people are kind of chill, so I want to get to know them better. Or Ray Cameron, from Central Oklahoma Ghostbusters. So yeah.
I mean, we've gotten to meet some really cool people and all I think maybe one thing that separates it is a lot of the people in our group also, they do cool things on their own. Like they might, like you have a podcast, or Tom and Matt have the Containment Unit Autograph Group, or Tony Taylor has Phantasm Toys, or John Yukeba has his artwork. So not everybody, and that's not, but it is cool that there's like creative collaboration and inspiration and all that kind of stuff. So super proud of it.
You should be. And I'm excited to be able to celebrate a bit of it together with you very soon. So it's going to be a good time.
And also there's new people who have joined the YHS Patreon over the last couple of weeks. Somebody specifically was like, didn't know who you guys were, heard about you from Extraplasm. So it's always a growing thing, and we all help each other out. At least we should. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, like literally you were talking about AJ earlier from GB Fans, and he's really a bad person, like just a not good guy. No. He's one of my best friends, and that was because of. Actually, I really don't know how that happened. I never really talked to him, and then one day he just went on vacation with us. So, hey, magic. No, AJ's great, and he's been super supportive of what we do at YHS, and super happy with it. Hopefully we have another 10 years left in us, and maybe 10 years, 3 more Ghostbusters movies in 10 years. We could probably do that.
Yeah, why not? I think you can do it. 10 more years of that, and
so exhausting to think about.
Well, if you do it for 10 more, do it for 15 more, you're getting to the point where you can start thinking about like when we're going to change the demographic and start talking about the AARP connections with Ghostbusters. Like, hey, guess what? It's sponsored by AAA and AARP for those of us in our 50s and 60s going out to see Ghostbusters 10, celebrating the 60th anniversary of Ghostbusters.
McKenna Grace is 40.
She's back as her kids. Her kids are in this one.
Wait a minute, this is about Trevor's grandchildren. He never had kids? Oh man.
Hey man, if we're all there for that, I'll be really happy, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I do. So another fun thing, I will be turning 40 the week of the premiere. That's Saturday, actually. So this is my last week of my 30s. I get to spend with all of my friends and see a new Ghostbusters movie. And if all goes according to plan, I don't know, go watch Dan Aykroyd yell at somebody or talk to somebody or
they shut about shoes.
Make a drink for somebody. I don't know.
Well, happy birthday in advance. 1, 2, I'm sorry you have to fire all your friends after you turn 40. You're not allowed to talk to anybody who's under the age of 40 anymore. It's how it works. It's not really, but
so that'll be I'm trying to. Am I the oldest? You
can still talk to me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm older. Jake just turned 39. Abby will be 39. She probably doesn't want to say that. Who cares, right? She'll be 39 in a later time this year, the fall. So yeah, I'll be hitting 40.
Well, the good news about 40, just so you know, and you may have heard this before, is that after you turn 40, mentally, there's just something that happens where you becomes the day where you wake up and you're like, I can walk to the mailbox in my boxers. It doesn't fucking matter. Nothing matters anymore.
No, I had a couple of those. This week. Abby was like, do you want to take care of yourself? Who cares? I don't care. I'll have a 12-inch meatball sub from Subway for breakfast and dinner. If you skip lunch, it's healthy. Oh,
It is true. I'm telling you. I don't even mean in an unhealthy way. I just mean that some of the drama, some of the things that exist out there, you just start going, whatever.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'm gonna open this. No, I guess I won't. I'm holding a lion from the New York Public Library.
Oh, you got one of those?
Yeah, they come in different sizes. Abby bought this years ago. But it's totally canon now, and I'm excited about that.
I actually posted the link to that in your Discord the other day.
Discord, yep.
And said, "Hey, this exists as bookends in 1/6 scale." and
right.
and 1/12 scale. So if you need to get some little diorama pieces and you need some lions, what are they called? Patience and something else? Like
I think it's Lucky and Podcast are their names officially. Hey, before we wrap up, I do want to say this. I'm happy to turn 40 and celebrate Frozen Empire because, like, I think about, okay, when I was turning 25, what was happening in Ghostbusters? Like, I don't know. I was probably ordering a slimed Egon figure off MattyCollector.com. That was like, this is the most important Ghostbusters thing that's happening this year.
Yeah.
So times have definitely changed and we're in a really good place as a fandom, I think. Lots of positivity. I'm seeing next to no negative, discourse surrounding Frozen Empire, which is not easy to do with any franchise or IP. So I'm super excited.
The only places I see it are the places that I generally don't go, and I check in once in a while, and I'm like, that's why I don't hang out in this place online. But
yeah, I mean, people are just, the worst. But most people, here's my new theory. I think most people are actually great. It's just that the bad ones are really loud. But when I go out in the world, I'm saying hi to people. People are holding doors for me. There's lots of head nods, smiles. It's better out there than on the
it totally
the
is.
Yeah.
The real world is actually a better place than the internet. It's the damnedest thing. And the internet's there to tell you how bad the real world is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really what it boils down to. But I'm glad we had an opportunity to chat about this and that we're going to get to see this movie very soon. I know we didn't talk quite as much about what we expect to happen with it because I think we know at this point, and I think that we've had some conversations already about what we're hoping for with the movie. But
my thing I've been thinking about mainly is box office. I've been overly consumed with how well or the movie will do, how much money it'll make opening weekend. Because we want it to be really successful and huge, and we want it to be a big deal.
So they make another one. Yeah.
So they make more. Yeah.
It's like, how that works.
So the filmmakers can profit. No, I don't care about that. I just want more Ghostbusters.
That's fine. I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah.
Jason Reitman doesn't need to pay for a movie theater with 20 other people. It's okay. He doesn't. The movie can do poorly. No, I don't want that at all.
He could have done it by himself, but he's just a nice guy. Oh, I love that, by the way. That was a wild picture with like Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams. But my big takeaway was like, look how far away J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson are standing from each other. I smell beef.
If you haven't seen this photo, folks, there's a photo out there of a bunch of movie directors standing outside the Fox Westwood Village Theater, which is essentially a historic theater built in the early 20th century, around 1930s, that has been used for movie premieres for many, many, many years. And in fact, was where the Friends and Family screening for Afterlife happened when I got to sit in the same row as Ivan Reitman, a thing I'll never stop talking about. But they saved it. It's a theater that has been sort of on the ropes and not sure if it was going to exist. And it's been saved by Jason Reitman and a whole panel of investors. And you can go read about that probably somewhere like Ghostbusters News. But if not, you can probably read about it in Variety for sure. But
yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. I'm excited about that. And who knows, maybe we'll also end up seeing Ghostbusters stuff at that. They'll be like Ghostbusters Fan Fest 2, Electric Boogaloo, including screenings at the Fox Westwood.
I mean, it's got to be better than that theater we saw the Ghostbusters in for Fan Fest. I mean, it's a cool room, but maybe not built for
that was not a movie theater at all. That was like a music theater that gets used like 2 times a year. Was that the Egyptian or something? I can't even remember. So
Well, listen, man, thanks for having me. Everybody go watch Firehouse Fridays and enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Craig, and we'll talk to you again real soon, and I'll see you even sooner. So bye. All right. Take care. That about wraps things up for Extraplasm this week. I want to say one final thank you to Craig Goldberg for coming on the show and talking with us this week about what's happening with the Firehouse Fridays series that they're going to be putting out beginning this Friday. Make sure that you're going and liking and subscribing their YouTube channel, their social media, so you don't miss out on anything as it's being released. As somebody who's had the opportunity to preview these, I can tell you that they're going to be something you're really going to enjoy when you get a chance to take a look at them, especially if you're a buff of like behind the scenes kinds of videos that show you how things were done or how, props are made, etc. I also want to say thank you as usual to vaporwave artist Magnavox, whose version of Ghostbusters serves as our theme song each week. And I want to say thank you, of course, to Brendan Pearce of Badoochi Studios, who provides the visual identity for the podcast and the podcast logo. I needed Brendan to do something for me very recently, and he dropped everything in the moment to do it because he's awesome and radical. And so, Brendan, thank you for everything you do to contribute to the podcast and to help it succeed in marketing and branding itself, etc. And of course, I want to say thank you to you for listening to the podcast, for being excited, for being motivated about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, for being in touch about it. If you're finding any of these promotional items out there that you're trying and you want to let me know about it, or if you just want to be in touch about the movie as you're seeing it and let me know what you think of it, by all means, reach out to me at extraplasmpodcast@gmail.com, or on social media, you can find me at Extraplasm on X, on Instagram, over on Facebook, we are known as Extraplasm Podcast, and on YouTube, you can find all the content over there at www.youtube.com/@extraplasm. Don't be a stranger. I'm ready to believe you've got something to share with the podcast, so feel free to come along and do it. And that being said, we are very, very close to watching this movie. For some of us, it's going to be a week. For the rest of us, it's going to be 2 weeks. Until we get there, try to remain calm, try to remain cool, and as Ernie Hudson says every week,
Try to have fun, and always keep on busting. Take care.